This is the rebel mindset, is the rebel mindset, is the rebel mindset, is the rebel mindset.
President John F. Kennedy said, "Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth." This is the rebel mindset. My name is Chris Falcon. You know, that's something that I've always believed, that growth is not possible without struggle. It doesn't matter how it is that you're growing. If you are expanding, you must be pushing up against something in some way, shape, or form. On this day, April 17th, the explorer of the New World, Christopher Columbus, signed an agreement with the monarchs of Spain to discover the Indies and spread Catholicism. For years, this guy was known as the discoverer of the Americas. How can you discover something that was already there? You've got families, communities thriving for years. Well, the answer to that question, sometimes the growth process involves discovering something that was already there. You know, the purpose behind this podcast is to help you maximize your potential, both personally and professionally, while sticking your middle finger up to the jailer of freedom, conformity, and the status quo. You know, today, I want you guys to discover something that's already in you. Your ability to reach beyond your limits and discover something new in yourself. You know, for years, I've been really honest about my past. I was bullied as a kid, suffered from depression, and it gave me something that I can never give back, which something I call the beast of self-doubt. It's plagued me my entire life, and I've had to fight with that. And today I have an incredible guest with me, somebody who is a devout yogi, spiritual badass. I'm not gonna call him a survivor of life's shit. I'm gonna call you a thriver of life. Michael Fine. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chris.
Thanks for joining me in the pod. I'm gonna give you a handshake.
Thanks so much for having me here, brother.
You know what? I want to start off with the Rebel Icebreaker. This is something that we do before every single interview. And the question for you today is going to be flatulence in the yoga studio. Flatulence. If you got it, do you hold it or do you let it go? What are we supposed to do?
It's in that room. There's actually a posture in the sequence that I practice and teach. That's called Pavamutasana, wind removing pose. So there's actually a perfect time in the class each and every day for that to happen. And
now, do people take advantage of that opportunity?
No one ever goes like full on and just like lets it go. But you see some looks on people's faces where you know what's happening.
Oh,
and you kind of catch it out of the corner of your eye, and then, you know, God forbid you walk through it. It's like walking through a mushroom cloud. So in a 105-degree room, it's not pretty.
At that point in the class, you're pretty stationary then.
You're on the floor. They're on the floor. I'm standing.
You're standing
it's
right
interesting,
there.
Yeah,
I love it.
So it's capture the flag kind of thing. Right?
I love it. Now, you've had an incredible story. You know, we've spent time together, and your story is amazing. And I know we're going to share a little bit of that with the people here. But you know, I want to start this off with just getting your take on something. How do you define toughness?
Toughness and tenacity are probably great synonyms as far as I'm concerned. Toughness is not falling down. We all fall. Toughness is getting up. Getting up one more time than you fall down. That's what makes you tough. That's what makes you a yogi. That is what I watch every day in that hot room. You know, falling out of a posture is learning how not to fall out of a posture. It's not failing. There is no failure, only lessons in what didn't work. And that's, you know, kind of a principle that's driven me, you know, forward after going through quite a bit of personal growth, unintended personal growth via circumstance rather than choice.
Totally.
But choice was always the driving force in moving forward.
Totally. I love that. I mean, toughness, it's not a question of did you not fall, because I think falling is a part of life. You know, if you're not falling, you're probably not living. But that toughness and that tenacity is getting back up, getting back up. And you had probably a million reasons to not get back up after some things that you've experienced, specifically the accident that you had.
Sure. I mean, listen, I'd like to say that it was, you know, an immediate path up. But as someone who's gone through lots of shit yourself,
absolutely,
you know that you know, life looks very different from the bottom of the well up versus from the top of the well down. And for anyone that's seen life from the bottom of the well up, you'll understand. And it really doesn't matter what type of experience you've gone through. Everybody everyone goes through something. Nobody gets out of this unscathed. My experiences were no better, no worse, no harder, no easier than anyone else's. They were just mine. And while I can't really, understand directly what your experiences were, obviously, because your experiences were yours, I understand what it's like to feel that way. And I think that's what binds people together that have been through trauma, tragedy, loss, anything. That for me was a basis to connect to people.
Now, I know some of the listeners will know who you are because you're extremely vocal in your presence here in this community. And obviously some people can see, but there are listeners out there that don't know. Can you share a little bit about your story and what actually
Sure.
what you dealt with?
It was 8 years ago, actually, this past weekend.
Wow.
Was my 8-year rebirth day, and I truly look at it as my rebirth day. While driving to work one beautiful spring April morning, April 10th, 2010, in my Volvo convertible with my top down, wind blowing through my fingers as I held the windshield, a big red concrete truck crossed the double yellow line on a 4-lane street while I was driving to work. And that truck hit me head on at about 45, almost 50 miles an hour. It drove up my hood through my windshield and took off my left arm at the shoulder. But for the heroics of an unbelievable human being who my kids grew up calling Uncle, a guy by the name of Eric Coleman, who was in the adjacent lane on that day, jumped out of his car, picked up the fragments of my arm that remained, marshaled a bunch of people around in the area, and fashioned a tourniquet out of tree twigs and rags, and saved my life. Wow. Never even would have met the man, but for getting his name off the police report in the hospital, weeks later after I came out of the ICU. Most humble guy you'd ever want to meet. Not a doctor. Doesn't even work in the medical industry. He's works in the food service industry. I'm the third guy he saved. Right place, right time.
Incredible.
I have his name saved in my phone as Eric Coleman, Earth Angel, because that's truly what I believe him to be. We just had dinner with him and his wife, with my wife and myself, Saturday. Every year on the anniversary of the accident, on my rebirth day, we get back together just to celebrate life, because that's how I truly look at that day, as a celebration of life. And yeah, I mean, that day was further complicated by a 6-week stay in the hospital, 8 surgeries, followed by 2 more at the end of that same year. Life in chronic pain. You may find it hard to believe, but I still feel the left arm as if it was attached to my body. It feels like it's encased in a block of ice and being squeezed all the time. Wow. I suffer from something called chronic residual limb pain syndrome, phantom pain, and changes externally in temperature, weather, barometric pressure, extreme heat, extreme cold serve to exacerbate the pain. And the internal triggers, just as real as the external, stress, fear, anxiety, emotion, further serve to exacerbate the pain. I lost my father about a month and a half before the accident. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer 2 months after the accident. The guy who hit me had minimum insurance coverage in Illinois, $20,000. My health insurance company at the time, before the Affordable Care Act was in place, without all the protections that we currently now enjoy, hopefully, we continue to enjoy, tried to rescind, tried to cancel my policy.
Unreal.
I was left with a mountain of bills, about $650,000 from the 8 surgeries and 2 more at the end of the year. Spiraled down into a deep, dark depression that led me to spend the evenings in my home while my wife and my 2 young boys at the time in 8th grade and 5th grade slept in their beds, to spend my evenings with a belt around my neck over a basement door, or in the garage of my home, the door closed and the car turned on, or in the bathroom, my house, with a knife at my wrist, all wanting to get out. I don't know if I was actually trying to kill myself. It culminated in an attempt, taking a bottle of pills, and going back into that same hospital that I emerged a few months prior as a hero, now into a ward where they took my belt and my shoelaces, and I was there with a bunch of drug addicts and alcoholics. No judgment, just, oh my God, how did I get here, kind of thing. By by some miracle, by act of God or energy or Buddha or Allah or whatever you choose to call it, I came out of that space looking for a new way forward. You see, I was on about 35 pills a day at that time. Norco, Vicodin, Oxycontin, methadone, morphine, fentanyl, Butran, you name it, opioid narcotic-wise I was on or tried. Then the nerve blockers, gabapentin, Lyrica, Cymbalta, and then the antidepressants, Seroquel, Abilify, and then the side effect meds to those meds, and the side effect meds to those meds, and pills to go to the bathroom, pills to stop going to the bathroom.
Wow.
I needed to find a new way forward. And fortunately, I had started looking into some type of Eastern modalities to try to deal with life in chronic pain. Those modalities took me to energy workers, massage therapists, Reiki, craniosacral therapy, cupping, sensory deprivation, flotation. Another friend of mine is an incredible healer that works with something called the Lifeline technique, a guy by the name of Dr. Darren Weissman. All different ways to deal with this pain. My acupuncturist at the time worked out of the basement of a yoga school. I had started yoga mainly in the vinyasa area, hot, because the heat helped me with the pain. It didn't. The concept of the series that they practice in the yoga wasn't as much a function of or a help to me as the heat. And my acupuncturist one day said, "Why don't you try this yoga?" The best way for me to describe this yoga, and I teach and practice a form of hatha yoga. The style and the method is the Bikram method, and it's a series of 26 postures and 2 breathing exercises done in a very specific order, the same no matter where you go in the world, in a 105-degree room at 40% humidity. It's not touchy. It's not feely. There's nothing warm and fuzzy about it. So the first couple classes that I tried, I hated. I'm used to a nice vinyasa flow class where if you can't do the postures or try, the teacher just looks at you and says, "Oh, go into child's pose. Do what you want."
Right.
Music's playing. They put nice cold towels on your face when you're done. Everything's wonderful. This was like getting punched in the face. This was serious discipline, a martial arts type discipline. And I hated it. Hated the first few classes. But every time I walked out of that room, I felt a little bit better than when I walked in.
Well, I mean, you went into this room with almost the ultimate punch in the face, right? And here you are, and ironically, you're in a place that's not warm and fuzzy. You said it was like getting punched in the face again.
Oh, again and again, yeah.
I mean, you had this physical trauma, and there was also mental illness involved in this as well.
For sure.
But for people out there who don't have any physical scars, but yet still find themselves suffering, from this punch in the face every single day. I mean, what advice do you have for them as far as what they need to do to find their remedy?
Yeah,
I mean, what do they do?
Listen,
I mean, you were lucky to find yoga.
I was, and I was lucky to
do?
find this specific form of yoga. I could tell you that everybody in that room is dealing with something. Everybody in that room comes in there to heal. It's a healing sanctuary, whether you're coming in there for physical pain issues, frozen shoulders, torn meniscuses, messed up hips, knees, what have you, or the mental stuff, stress, anxiety, depression. It's a magical series of yoga that I can't explain why it works, but it's just a series of postures in the order that they're in through tourniquet effects, cutting off blood flow in all these different postures, to different areas of your body. In that 90-minute time frame, you're cutting off blood flow, releasing, sending high-speed, fresh, oxygenated blood to those areas, and ultimately what happens is your body returns to homeostasis. Everything works the way that it's supposed to. Your livers, your kidney, your spleen, all of your organs just start to work. When everything returns to that place, the world just looks different. I came into that room to find relief from physical pain. The silver lining to the cloud was the mental and the spiritual clarity that I found that I wasn't even looking for.
No, that's
and
incredible.
that's what brings me back, and that's what could help people that are dealing with struggles, internal struggles that are just as real as the physical pain.
Right,
sometimes
right.
worse.
Right, right.
There's not pain is pain.
Right.
And mine's just easier to see. So if I could be an ambassador to show people that, this yoga is for every body, the old, the fat, the sick, the weak, whatever. My mentor in this yoga is this woman by the name of Mary Jarvis, who has this amazing phrase that all you need to do yoga is a spine. I added 2 arms are optional, and that's how I chose to move forward. And this yoga was the vehicle for me to do so.
Amazing. I mean, I've always believed that you are what you practice to be. And I've done, Bikram yoga. I took my first Bikram yoga class, I think back in maybe 2002. And, what got me in there actually, I was young. I was a pretty built guy at that time.
Yeah, well, you're still a pretty built guy. Man,
yeah,
so.
But I mean, now I'm closer to 40. So
okay.
But I mean, then I was way more built, and to be honest with you, I was chasing a girl, and that's how I ended up in my first Bikram yoga class.
Yeah.
I went and I talked to her, and she said to me, well, I asked her out, and she's like, well, why don't you come to yoga with me tomorrow? And here at this time, I'm probably, benching 350 pounds or whatever. I'm like, yoga, yeah, whatever, I'll come with you.
Sure.
And so she takes me into this Bikram yoga class, and I saw all different types of people in there. Older people, younger people, bigger, everything was in there. And I'm by far the most physically impressive person in the room. I'm like, this is going to be a joke. And then, and ultimately, I mean, it wasn't even 5-6 minutes into this thing. Okay, I am like ready to die. Okay, ready to die. I don't know if I was probably dehydrated from all the supplements I was on or everything, but I was ready to die. But you do these postures. You're falling in and out of these postures. There's sweat in your eye that's burning.
For sure.
It's trickling into your ear. You're thirsty. It's hot.
Exactly.
How do all these punches in the face and coming class after class, practicing, how do all these things prepare us for what life has to bring?
That room, the hot room, and the hot room is a generic term that refers to every, Bikram yoga school, across the world. That room's a microcosm of our outside world. Your habits and your patterns tend to come out in the times of the greatest stress in your life. That room is like a flight simulator for life, and it's 105. It's 40% humidity. You're sweating bullets, and that room brings out all these things that force you, because there's no music, there's no touchy-feeliness going on in there. The teacher doesn't do the postures. The teacher just talks you through the postures.
Right.
Is your guide, via a voice. It's your eyes, your reflection, and you're forced to find yourself in there. There's nothing else that can get in your way. Many things try. Sweat dripping in your eyes, in your ears, burning your eyes, which usually stops after about a month or so, because really what that is, the physical thing that's going on in there is a detox.
Right.
It's a daily detox. The largest organ of your body is your skin. Your skin detoxifies by sweat, and that gets out all the impurities and stuff in your body that you're trying to get rid of, to cleanse. After a couple weeks, it doesn't even burn anymore. Your sweat's clean. It's not salty, because your body, once it starts to detoxify.
Totally. I want to go back to this, quickly to what you just mentioned before, and this moment of confrontation that you have, in that here you are, you're taking these punches, and people will typically resort back to whatever habits they'd had. But you come in here, you are what you practice, and eventually you start to become something new. But is this practice of taking these punches, of falling out of the postures, but then getting back up, this toughness and this tenacity, does this leave room for weakness in our lives? Are we allowed to be weak?
Absolutely. You know what? This yoga, to me, is the ultimate expression of self-love. You need to take care of yourself first. It's not selfish to take care of yourself first, because if you're your best you, then you can take care of those around you. There's days in that room where I sit. There's days when I wake up in so much pain that the hardest part is getting there and getting in there. And I'll sit for half the class if I have to. I'll sit in that heat and sweat. And the days that I'm strong, I'm strong. Really what that room is, it's a place for people from all different walks of life. And this is a beginner series of yoga. There's people that have been practicing it for 30 and 40 years, and every day you walk into that room, you're a beginner. And even though it's the same set of postures each and every day, you bring a different person to that mat each and every day.
So true.
So friends who tell me, how can you do the same thing every day? And to guys, I usually give them the analogy to golf, because guys get golf for the most part. And I said, well, if you play the same golf course every day, would you shoot the same score? And they said, no, that's crazy. How could I shoot the same score every day? I said, well, it's the same thing. You bring a different person to that mat every day. You got different things going on in your body. You got different shit in your head that you can't leave outside of the room when you come in there. There's days when you come in there with a clouded head, and that 90-minute class feels like it's 4 hours. And there's days when you come into that room and you find your meditation, because they call this practice a 90-minute open-eyed moving meditation. 90 minutes goes by in 20. Time is a relative concept in that room and outside of that room. If you walk into it, and if you face it, and if you embrace it, and if you feel, and if feeling today means I got to sit down because this is just a little bit too much for me. It took me 2 years before I was able to sit down. When I first started practicing, I felt like I was holding up that room. I had to be the source of inspiration for everybody in there. I had to show them that, man, if this one-arm guy can do this shit, man, then I'm not sitting down. I'm going to follow that guy. That guy's going to be it was a lot of shit to carry. A lot of bricks in my backpack carrying that.
A lot.
It took me 2 years to finally say, you know what? I'm human. And you know what? This is a tough day for me. So guess what? I'm sitting down.
You're sitting down, and it's okay to do that.
Absolutely.
All that is happening in that
compassion.
room. Absolutely, and for yourself. But all that is happening in that room. But life itself is the ultimate hot room, as you've said.
For sure.
It is the ultimate hot room. I want people to be able to grow from this podcast, not only personally, but professionally as well. And, many people might not even know. You were very successful in the world of business as well. What tips could you give for entrepreneurs out there, people struggling through moments of weakness when it comes to business, struggling to get their business off the ground, or maybe they're losing customers and they're in fear of losing their business? How do they push through those moments of weakness and stress in this ultimate hot room of life?
That's a great question. The best way that I've found to deal with anything after all the things that I've gone through these past few years is if you could face things from a perspective of love versus fear. Any decisions I've ever made in my life, probably 99 out of 100 that I've made from a fear-based place, have always been the wrong decisions. Everybody has that voice. You can call it your sixth sense, you can call it your gut, you can call it God, Buddha, Allah, Jesus, whatever it is you want to call it, but it's in you. And trusting that voice, to me, and in these past few years, going through the training that I've gone through and the experiences that I have, I've learned to trust that voice more than any of my other senses. My sense of smell, my sense of taste, anything. If something doesn't feel right about something, don't do it. And approaching relationships, the currency in life, the real currency, the truest currency, I think, isn't money, isn't material things, stuff. It's connection. It's connection to each other. We have so much more in common than we have in difference. different backgrounds, socioeconomic status, race, religion, sexual orientation, all that stuff's great. 99% of it's the same, except for that one thing. And unfortunately, we're living through some really toxic times right now. And we're being driven, via many things that we see in our media and in our politics by fear and division and hate. And I think the sooner we realize and connect on a one-to-one personal level, and whether that's in your business, if it's really understanding your customers, if it's really taking a genuine interest in a conversation, not looking at your phone, really being here, right now, no place else. And whatever it is that you focus your attention on, if it's in that room for 90 minutes, it's 90 minutes for you.
Incredible.
No phone, and that to me will help you, and following your heart and doing what you love. For the first time in my life right now, I'm doing something that I love.
Now, the question I have for you, you talk about this fear, and I feel like so many people out there are afraid to be their authentic self.
Sure.
Afraid to kind of, stop hiding behind their devices, and just be themselves. And in the world of business, sometimes they feel like they need to be successful. They need to be this, that, and this, but they're not necessarily carrying with them who they really are, And
For
so,
sure.
and that can be a challenging place to be. In the world of business, in the world of being yourself, is it fair for us to maybe say, here's the question I have for you. Would Michael Fine have this perspective if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through?
Oh,
and in the
God,
world
no.
of business,
Yeah.
do we have to fail? Do I need to go through these hardships in my business? Might I have to lose my shoe store in order to truly understand what it is that you're talking about, which is making these decisions from love and being my authentic self?
Yeah, I don't know if it has to get to be that bleak or that challenging, or you have to actually lose to understand. Listen, there's a lot of bright people out there that learn from insight. I'm not that smart. For me, it was trauma, and I think most people, learn by going through shit, by seeing life from the bottom of the well up for at least some point. But it's the understanding of knowing that it's one big circle. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're on bottom. But if you can keep the perspective of, what? I know I just got to keep moving. I know this isn't permanent. The only constant in life is change, period. Everything's changing all the time. And I can either choose to accept it and then flow like a river that hits a rock in the middle and figures out a way around it, be like water, my friend, Bruce Lee, or choose to fight it. And if you do and resist, you feel pain, physical, mental, what have you, but you feel pain until you choose to say, you know what, this is the way it is. I'm going to embrace this. And, this was the hand that I've been dealt, so to speak, and I'm going to play it. May not be the hand that I chose, but it's the hand that I got. How am I going to deal with it? Am I going to face it with an open heart, with love, and know that I've gotten this far in my life? It hasn't just been luck. There's no reason to think that I'm not going to get to the next place in my life either. Am I going to win the lottery tomorrow? No, probably not. But is the world going to end tomorrow either? No, probably not. The reality of it is it's going to be someplace in the middle. Maybe not exactly what I wanted, but it's not that bad. And it's just learning to be able to stay like this, regardless of what's going on around you.
Totally.
To be able to get those, the ability to step back a little bit.
Totally.
And make that, and make those decisions from that place.
Now, all day long, as a fitness professional, I get these two words. I can't. Okay? I can't. And it's incredible, how everybody can come in with their own kind of preconceived notions on what their best is or what they can or cannot do.
Right.
You had all odds against you, in so many ways, dealing with what you've dealt with, but you persevered, you struggled, you had the toughness, you pushed. What tips do you have for people that think that they can't do it? How can we motivate and inspire these people to push past their preconceived limits?
You know, if you think you can't, or you think you can, you're right. In both those instances, I know the saying. I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's that kind of thing. 100% is different. 100% effort in whatever it is that you're doing. In that room in our yoga practice, 100% can change 10, 15 times in a class. But as long as you're given 100% of whatever it is that you can give, then you get 100% of the benefits of the practice. Maybe my postures don't look like someone with two arms in every way, shape, and form. Maybe I don't do things exactly the same way, but it's the effort that counts. And this parallels every other part of life in that, are you there? Are you phoning it in, or are you there? Only you know if you're giving it. Me as a teacher, I don't know. You could tell me that you're giving 100%. I can't see what's going on inside your mind. I can look at you, I can know based on prior classes but I have no idea. It's all effort. It's all a choice to show up. And showing up is showing up in every way, shape, and form. It's being there physically, it's being there mentally. It's giving whatever it is that you have to give. And that changes each day. And that's okay that it changes each day. And that's okay that my 100% today wasn't as good as my 100% yesterday from a standpoint of I'm sitting or I'm not practicing but it's just the continuous motion again and again and again, because habits and patterns are created in that way as well. And those are just positive ones. So I can't is simply a pattern or a habit. And we have to really try to step back and understand ourselves, and that habits and patterns aren't really us. They are our habits and our patterns. They're not part of us. They're not something that is us. We're so much more than that.
Right.
And when we become aware of that, the first step to creating any type of change that's meaningful in your life is to notice. Simply notice. Observe. Conscientious observer. Okay, no judgment. Oh my God, I'm a piece of shit. I can't. No, just noticing it. Because once you notice it, once you become aware of it, that's the moment where you could say, I'm aware of this pattern and habit. I want to change it. I choose to change it, and I'm changing it.
I love it.
I've changed it, and that's how it works. That's how it's worked for me, and I'm nobody special. It's just how it works for everybody. But you got to notice what it is about yourself or your life or your business that you want to change first. And once you do, make the choice, set the intention. And it's not just setting the intention and wishing, it's setting the intention and putting together a systematic way to reach your goal.
I love it. I love it. I mean, we are not our behaviors, but at the same time, you must work if you want to.
Right. No one's going to give it to you.
To make change. No one's going to give it to you. We're talking about habits here. And behaviors. One thing that everybody knows about you is that you're constantly surrounding yourself with beautiful people. I mean, when we watch the Michael Fine lifestyle, you're traveling, you're meeting people all over the world all the time. And that's one thing that inspires me about the lifestyle that you're living, is that you're attacking life and you're doing it your authentic self. What's one thing, or a couple things, whatever, that you have picked up and noticed and learned from just encountering all the people that you've encountered on a daily basis? Your life is nothing but connecting and immersing yourself in the love and surroundings of beautiful people.
I'm addicted to it because it every time that I go to some place and I find people that see the world the same way, that in spite of everything they're going through, they're choosing to show up. They're choosing to be there. They're choosing to be their authentic self in light of many obstacles that are far more challenging than the ones that I've gone through. It inspires me. It inspires me and lets me know that I'm on the right path, because, again, these connections, these are the currency of life. This is what life is. It's not stuff. I got nothing against money. I'm not some guy that wants to go live on top of a mountain and just breathe air and drink water. Okay, that's great if that's your gig. Money's great, but if you don't have the other things, it's cold comfort, you know, and this traveling that I've been doing and teaching this yoga all over the place, meeting people from all different walks of life, but having that connection to them, and they're in that room for the same reason I am, to heal. Everybody's healing from something. And the sooner that we all realize that this could be a mechanism, and there's many other ones out there that could serve to connect and bind us, no real change in the world, anything meaningful anyway, happens from the top down. It all happens from the bottom up.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is. And I look at this as my platform to help create change, to try to make the world better, to try to bring people together, to try to unite, to connect, not divide, through love, not fear. And that has been the catalyst to take me from place to place to place.
Well, you are doing it, my friend, and you are doing it in style. You know, I mean, I could sit and talk to you all day long, you know, because that's the kind of person you are. Your story is incredible, and you've got so much knowledge and wisdom. How can people get more, Michael Fine?
Well, I teach this yoga on a part-time basis at a couple different yoga schools. The main one is in Evanston. It's a school at 1840 Oak called Sweat Junkie. Two of my dear friends just opened it this past month. Amazing teachers, people that live this yoga on the mat and off the mat. There's a lot of yoga exercise studios out there. This is a yoga school. There's a big difference from an exercise studio and a yoga school. It's not just about the physical exercise, which you get plenty of, but it's the mental, spiritual clarity that is something that's fostered there. And I love it for that reason. The other place I teach, also a true yoga school, my heart sanctuary is what I call it. It's called B Yoga in Andersonville on Clark Street off of Peterson. Amazing woman owns that place as well. One of my many teachers who inspires me every time I'm there. And I'll teach there maybe once a week, and I teach in Evanston various times. You can go on either of the websites. Sweat Junkie is sweatjunkiefitlife.com.
Awesome.
And I think it's hotyogachicago.com is B Yoga Andersonville.
Michael Fine, you're amazing. I hope you're gonna come back and see me again.
Right back at you, brother. Anytime you want.
I hope you're gonna come
Anytime
back.
you want, man.
Your story is absolutely incredible. You know, all of us are in the school of life, whether we believe it, accept it, or not. If we want to reach past our limits, we have to understand that this is a process, and it involves growth. It also involves humility and understanding that it's okay to be weak. Okay, it's all right to be weak. It's all right to have those moments when you're knocked down, but we have to understand that the true strength that we possess as human beings is our ability to get back up. But the most important thing we have to do when we do that is make sure we do that authentically. Be yourself. Have the strength and courage to simply be what is, or as Bruce Lee would say, be like water.
Be like water, my friend.
This is a Rebel Mindset. We will have somebody back here in the pod here at Media Pods. I'm not sure who our next guest is, but if you go to therebelmindset.com, you will go ahead and see our next guest. Thank you guys so much for listening. Rebel on.